I think what Duncan said on the podcast, where you give up self and you just completely buy into the team and you just go into a game knowing, hey, clutter-free. I don't know what my role is going to be tonight, and that's okay. I'm going to try to help my team win. Some nights are going to be my night. Some nights it's not going to be my night. And they've all bought into that. And that's sort of what I mean with the hierarchy. Clearly, Jimmy Butler is the best player, but the way that they operate night to night changes.
So is there, when you're talking about like their blueprint to winning, the Heat blueprint to winning, is it a sort of a combination of make the game muddy, like you mentioned yesterday, and hit threes? And it's like if you do those two things, you have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, look, there's a few things on this because I'm glad you brought up the word blueprint because that's the word we used on First Take, and I'm sure that's the word specifically used on Twitter at times on beating the Nuggets. It's, make Jokic a scorer. To distill the game and simplify the game into that simple thing is the overarching thing that the Miami Heat won because of that last night. I'm not buying that for a second. I'm not buying that for a second. There is so much that goes into a 48-minute basketball game. Some of the things I just mentioned, they start that fourth quarter 83-75, and Jimmy's not on the floor. They go on the run. Gabe Vincent hits a big three. Duncan gets 10 points. I thought Bam, that was, even though he didn't score as much as game one, that was his best game of the series. Best I've seen him play on both ends of the floor. They needed Jimmy Butler to close them out. They needed that zone in the fourth, which they switched up their initial formation. At times it looks like, we call it shape shifting, but at times it looks like a 2-3. But in the fourth last night, it was a 1-3-1. They had somebody parked at the foul line so that Jokic couldn't make an easy catch and make plays. Didn't it feel like at points
they were going back and forth into two different zones on one possession?
Yeah, Brady Hawk, who covers the Miami Heat, really smart basketball analysis. Give him a follow on Twitter. He showed a video thread. And one of the things that I picked up on from the thread, and he points this out, when their low guy is on an empty side, he steps all the way up to the three-point line. So he just fills a natural gap and fills the natural space because no one's over there in the corner. Whereas if you run a traditional zone, you're sort of designated to an area, 2-3, right? Yeah. You're the low guy, you stay low. When the ball comes to the corner, you go out to the corner. And they just naturally fill the space. And I that's why, the shape-shifting thing is I think so accurate, is that there's no set formation, there's no set rule, as Duncan said. And that was a big reason they won. Another big reason they won was that run in the second quarter to just get them back in the game. I mean, such an energy shift from how Miami started to that end of the first quarter, first 5 or 6 minutes of the second quarter, and they made it a 6-point game. That had nothing. Jokic started the game out, and he said, "This is what I think about Jokic. He sees what is needed from the game, and it was very clear early on. And he saw this. Oh, we're not getting a lot of off-ball stuff tonight. I've got to be more aggressive to score. And then it's third quarter. Oh, I've got a couple teammates struggling right now. I've got to be aggressive to score. It's not like, oh, they're making me be a scorer. No, you got to give credit to the Miami Heat for how they defended all the off-ball stuff.
I think it's just them Denver being 0-3 in this playoffs when he has 40 points. It's just a weird stat. It doesn't really make any sense, and so I feel like that's where people draw this thing. I mean, but to your point, the Nuggets were plus 15 with him on the bench in the second quarter. I was going to ask about what Malone said after the game. Jeff Green said this. Some of the other guys might have said it as well. They were kind of, going in on themselves about a lack of energy and a lack of effort. And I think Green was like, this is the fucking NBA Finals or something like that. It didn't feel to me like the Nuggets didn't had too much of an energy gap or anything like that. I mean, they were rebounding well. They had more offensive rebounds than the Heat. They had a lot of hustle plays, especially in the second quarter. It was more just like the Heat made shots. I mean, the Heat shot 50% from three.
Yeah. So I'm not saying Jeff Green only said that because Michael Malone delivered that message in the locker room, but I will point out oftentimes after a game, a coach will come in the locker room and have a few key points he makes, and then he goes to the press conference and he makes those key points. And oftentimes when players get asked about it, they just repeat what the coach says. I'm not saying Jeff Green said that. I agree with you. I didn't think it was an effort issue. I thought it was we haven't solved Miami's zone in the fourth quarter, which they had trouble with in game 1 too. They got better looks in game 1 and missed them, but that was more of it. I'll say this. to me, the fourth quarter came down to a lack of communication, execution, basketball intelligence. There's 2 plays back to back. Miami goes to delay action. Duncan Robinson curls the pin down. It's an easy switch. Similar size guys, Brown and Brown, Vincent and Robinson. There's no mismatch. If a guy curls the pin down, you switch it. It's literally automatic. 2 guys go with Duncan Robinson. Vincent gets an open 3. Run it the very next play. Duncan Robinson curls. Brown doesn't switch. Duncan gets an open layup. A few minutes after that, kick pass to Jimmy in the corner. Gordon goes to close. Jimmy gives him a shot fake. Gets by him and 1. Why are you going for Jimmy Butler's shot fake from 3? Just give it a late contest. KCP, 2 fouls on 3-pointers. That's 6 points. I've just named 16 points in that quarter from dumb basketball plays, from a complete lack of execution. What does that have to do with making a Jokic a scorer?
Yeah,
it doesn't. They're not related.
But it is also that's just it's like a lack of execution and a lack of effort are 2 different things.
100%.
You know, there just is
100%.
I wanted to get back to Bam for a second. We're not talking too much in the way of DraftKings today, but I'm curious about the DraftKings MVP numbers on Bam, because right now he's plus 11 in their 80 minutes. They're minus 19 with his 15 minutes off the court. He obviously, you know, was more of a scorer and was looking more to score in game 1. In your feeling, is there anything else he can do at this point? It feels like he's been as good as advertised and better. And to this point about no one's going to stop Jokic, no one's going to shut Jokic down. But on both ends of the court, he is living up to what he needs to do for them to have a chance in the series.
Yeah, I've never bought into Bam needs to score 25 or 30 for the Heat to win. Bam needs to be the best version of himself. And the best version of Bam, to me, is offensively, it's a little bit similar to Jokic. It's a little bit similar to Sabonis, where you're using him as a hub. He's making plays out of the short roll. No one ever talks about how good of a screener Bam is. He's getting his shooters open, similar to how Sabonis does. Jokic is another great screener. So he's doing all those things. And if he gets up 15 to 20 shots in the flow of the game, great. And I thought yesterday he had the perfect balance of, I'm going to be aggressive here. I've got a matchup I like. I got space to shoot over the top. I'm going to short roll and make a play. Twice in the second half, he rolled all the way to the basket, 1 for an and 1 dunk and 1 for a tough lefty finish. I just thought his game overall offensively was great. On the other end, look, Jokic had a big night, but 8 for 18 when Bam was the primary defender, 7 for 8 when everyone else is. So at least he made it tough on Jokic. In terms of the MVP, I just think there's too much basketball to play, especially because it's 1-1 right now.
I wrote about this in the letter today. The difference in 3-point shooting, we've talked a ton about the team overall, but the difference in 3-point shooting between Gabe, Vincent, Duncan, and Martin in the regular season to now it was crazy in the Milwaukee series, dipped a little bit in New York. It was crazy in the Boston series, and now it's even getting more stark. The 3 of them were 33.9% from 3 on 13 attempts during the regular season. The 3 of them are now currently shooting 43% from 3 on 16.3 attempts through 20 playoff games. Only 2 guys who shot better than that during the regular season were Al Horford and Luke Kennard. So it does feel like we're watching this is a little historic in terms of a jump like this.
It is. And, another the lowest scoring team in the league. I believe they had the 27th best offense when we adjust for pace on, in terms of offensive efficiency. But I don't know. I made this argument last week. I don't know that this is like a fluky thing. I don't, because in some ways they're returning to their historic norms of shooting the basketball.
Duncan for sure.
And then also the Heat overall shot 38% over the last 18 games of the regular season from 3 as a team. Those guys obviously heavily involved. Duncan, still a little spotty in the rotation. But I think everybody that has ever played against the guys they have on their team, anybody who's watched them play over the last 3 or 4 seasons, doesn't think of these guys as non-shooters.
Yeah.
That's the difference to me. Nobody's treating Duncan Robinson or Gabe Vincent as a non-shooter. Caleb Martin, the way he shot the basketball in the Boston series specifically, I do believe that's a little bit of an anomaly. I don't think he's going to have a sustained season of 48% from three, and especially some of the shots that he hit. But capable shooter. I mean, that would be on the scouting report in a regular season game. Again, these are not like there's like hot guys and cold guys. None of those guys are cold guys.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.